And we're live. Welcome to Music Matters 2020. I'm your host, Jason Tramm, and it's a delight that you can join us for Music Matters 2020 and our unique podcast community, where we delve into the issues in classical music in 2020 with all the challenges and the innovations that it contains. And on the show, we deal with musicians who are doing interesting, innovative approaches to this pandemic, and it's been a delight to get to speak to so many. This is our 35th episode, and we're so delighted that you can join us. Remember to subscribe on YouTube and hit the bell for the most up-to-date information and upcoming guests and topics. Like our videos and share and help our community grow as the conversation deepens. Feel free to ask questions in the chat box next to on this broadcast, and we'll answer your questions live as best as possible. And it's always exciting to have you join us as we delve into the conversation. We have a wonderful guest today, Miss Alexandra LoBianco, one of America's leading dramatic sopranos, whose career has taken her to the leading roles, some of the most challenging roles in opera, especially Wagner, Verdi, and many, many others, Puccini, Turandot being one of her signature roles, I believe. And we're so delighted she can join us today. She's also sung with the Vienna Staatsoper and all over the world. We're delighted to have Alexandra LoBianco. Welcome. I've known many mezzos, and the joke is always half as crazy, right?
Well, sort of. No, but Carol gave me the gift of technique, and she looked at me at that point in time and said, "Stop auditioning. Just stop. Learn how to sing. Learn what you're doing. Learn your craft." And for some unforeseen reason, I actually did.
How hard is it as a young artist to take that advice when you have that burning desire to perform and you know that's what you want to do, and you meet that mentor? And I've heard this story from so many great artists, and to stop and to really focus on your technique. What does that feel like? That's okay. We had the director of St. Patrick's Cathedral on her. It was really cute. Her daughter popped up slowly in the back and then slowly popped back down in the show. Everyone loved it. Aw.
She looked at me and said, "You're a soprano." I swear we thought about it for the next year. It was probably more like the next 5. Because I didn't want to be a soprano. I didn't want that pressure. I did not want. And to be told to stop auditioning was terrifying because I had just started. I literally left her and was going to Sarasota to do the Young Arts program in Sarasota in 2005. And I had no idea who I was. I had no idea what I was doing. I talk about a complete cluster. And it was so hard to wrap my brain around the fact that not only do I have, am I just starting, but now I have to stop. And I stopped, but I'm so incredibly grateful I did. Because for the next few years, I grew into who I am. Not just as a singer, but as a human being. And I found my own footing in my life. I got a divorce. Because at the time I was married, I got a divorce, and my ex-husband and I are fine. But that changes you. And moving to Florida and getting out of North Carolina and going to Florida, and I was a teaching artist, and I was a stagehand, and I worked in any other part of the theater. I mean, I've done the 2 a.m. Load-ins running cable for rock bands, and I've done light grids, and I've hung, and I used to carry around a Gerber and a C wrench, that was in my back pocket, and that opened up in both directions. I would say that I considered myself a spinto truly until about my mid-30s. And then I was actually in 20, again, the phone calls with Carol. It's a theme here. Carol called me in 2012 after I had called her about oh my God, I'm covering Oda Bella and Attila at San Francisco Opera, and oh my God, and I can't believe I'm doing this. And she's like, it's time. You have to start calling yourself a dramatic soprano now. But I'm only 30, blah, blah, blah. I don't care. You do it now. Okay, fine.
Watching the being that first big cover and watching the principal cast and just sitting there absorbing. You're a student of this, obviously. This just love this. You love all aspects of it. So what's it like watching being that cover artist and watching from the back and getting ready to take those positions?
At times it's very frustrating. I will be very honest. Just because the thing we want to do is be on stage, but it is also, if I'm learning a new role, it's so wonderful because it gives me time to process through the emotional arc of the character from the sideline. And it gives me time to really ingest what's actually going on in a very visceral way without having to make the noises. And that's very useful, especially when I'm working in the Verdi and the Wagner repertoire. And I've had to debut some things without that time.
I saw. I want to ask you about that. What's it like being a cover and having to go on to that pressure and to make that debut?
Oh, the Electra. It was not Electra, mind you. It was Cruzotomes, but at the same time, that was terrifying. Absolutely terrifying. But you're either ready or you're not. And that was an interesting one because of, ironically, because of the polar vortex that happened that year. And during the polar vortex, it was the night of the coldest freeze. Was supposed to be our cover run. It was canceled, obviously, and then we never got it. We weren't able to do a new cover run, and we'd done a small thing. Sir David McVicker's incredible post-apocalyptic set at Lyric Opera with blood running down the stage, and I'm trying to, I need to do a quick change. I forgot that I have to take my tights off. And I've got to put my feet in the stuff, and I've got to run down this bloody staircase that I've never gone down in my life.
Wow.
I'm going, oh
boy. That's what makes opera so exciting, is all those factors come together. Wow. So take us through that day. How did you know you were going to go? When did you find out that day that you were going on?
You need to feel better because she's a friend and I genuinely care about her health. And she said, nope, you're going on. I said, Elsie, stop. She's like, nope, you're going on.
Wow.
She told me around noon. I said, yeah, okay, sure. I then, of course, canceled I was supposed to be teaching that day. I canceled my lessons, and I was just reviewing all day and trying to remember because it's Strauss, and it's really hard Strauss. It's really, really hard Strauss.
I don't think there's any easy Strauss.
Comparatively, Ariadne is easier than that. But so Elsie, she told me around noon, and I called my dear friend, Josh Quinn, who I've known since he was like 18, 19, 20 years old. And we've been friends since Florida. He happened to be in Chicago. He happens to be in Chicago now. He's now working on being a coach and conductor, ironically. And he was supposed to come over because I was leaving on Sunday to go to Baltimore to do Dutchman. And I needed to coach him on Zenta. So I said, Josh, we're going to switch directions, and we're just going to review the snot out of Chrysotomus to make sure I know where I'm going to make mistakes and how to fix them, because I know I'm going to make mistakes. That is a reality. There's going to be mistakes that happen, and my point is my job that night was to be as consistent for Nina Stemma, who, just Nina Stemma who's singing Electra, and just Maestro Donald Runnels in the pit, just
The dream team. Did you have staging rehearsals? I mean, you cover stagings, but did you have any? You have a cover run on the stage on the set?
Person who had to walk up very slowly at the end, looking into the light. I felt like a gremlin going, bright light, bright light. So and I got to the theater, and management came around, and they were very supportive, and my partner, is there a dragon or an owl on my back? I'm not sure which. What's going on? So, and Meister came around, and he looks at me and goes, I said, he's like, good, it's gonna be fun.
See you on the other side.
Thanks, I think. And honestly, I called my therapist on the way to the theater and was like, I just need to know I can do this. And yes, I did. My goal was not to be perfect. I knew it was not going to be perfect. I knew there was going to be some major mistakes. But I also know it's Strauss and not, Nozze di Figaro or Butterfly or Tosca or anything else that's really, really, really familiar. And it's a little easier to hide some of the mistakes. But the goal was one scene at a time. Go out, do the first scene. Focus on that. Make sure you hit the things that are really, really important. The other stuff is passable. Do what you can. Make sure that you're consistent for Nina. Great. Second scene, I got thrown a loop. Because let's add to Lexi's stress as she's running out to do this. Sure. Apparently, there's a water jug prepped on set in case of an emergency. It got knocked over.
Oh boy!
In the first scene. So they said, Lexi, here, take this water jug out with you and figure out how to get it to Nina while you're trying to sing all this. She's got no idea what's going on. I'm running around like I'm drunk, going, Orest is taught.
Is there anything more exciting than opera? For people who don't know, maybe the people on the show who are not singers or people in the field, I always say it's like you may not see behind it, but it's just there's so much excitement and energy, and things like this happen. And this happens all the time. I mean, covers go on regularly. And that starts a lot of major careers. Domingo covered for Corelli. I mean, it's always been that way in opera. Singers do get sick, and there's this kind of, and you have to be ready, and the cover does go on, and it launches a lot of great careers. And what did that teach you about yourself, going through this and getting through it and accomplishing your goal? And what did that teach you?
For my debut in Vienna, because I had 9 days notice and 5 days of rehearsal in Vienna for my debut singing Fidelio, of all things, while I was covering Turandot for the Staatsoper. Nothing will prep you for that, like having 5 days to remember having a role in your head, especially when you have to speak German to a Viennese audience as you're the American. No pressure.
Big pressure. Woo.
So there was that, and then there was this, and if I can jump off that mountain, I can jump off just about any other mountain I need to. If I have to learn a role quickly, I know that I can. It's one of those things that it just boosts my confidence in my ability to do this. And it gave me knowledge that I am as crazy as I think I am. And this job is as crazy as I love it to be. Because it really is, there's not many places in the world where you get to be thrown into that situation.
What are some of your roles that you identify the most with in the repertoire? Ah.
With I Am in Heaven.
That's a great show.
Yes. And I was competitive horseback rider when I was younger, so I grew up shooting guns. I was a pro marksman, and I did, all the stuff. You gotta love having a dad who's a judge and a mom who's an attorney.
Fantastic. It's amazing how things come back. Everything comes back. It loops around in some ways. It all comes around.
But Minnie, for sure, that is, most definitely, that's me in a nutshell. Between Fanchulna and then, I honestly, Brunhilde is probably one of my favorite things. She's been with me now for about a decade almost. But it's such an epic journey of such an incredible woman. Also, Leonora and Fidelio. She's just such a powerhouse of a woman.
I love the Beethoven. I wish Beethoven would have written more opera. That's just such a powerful show.
Me too. And she sings like she's a clarinet and the whole thing. And the writing is so woodwind. It's all woodwind trios and woodwind quartets, and it's amazing.
I know so many wonderful wind players who become opera singers. Who I can think of a couple off the top of my head who played oboe and different instruments. What did being an instrumentalist teach you about being a singer?
Oh, how to listen to the pit, how to listen to color, and how to listen ahead, and be with the orchestra and not listen with my eyes, but to listen with my heart. And
you could always spot the artists who feel the orchestra because they have that sense, and they're not just watching the conductor only, but they're being a part of this like chamber music type feel.
Yeah. There's something really special about having sat in, even as a young kid, there was something beautiful about sitting in band and wind ensemble. My high school didn't have an orchestra, unfortunately, but we did have a really fine wind ensemble. And being in a place where my high school band director would say, "You're not paying attention. Stop tapping your feet. You use your heart. Figure out your internal beat. Figure out how to feel what everyone else in the section is doing. Don't worry so much about what if you're going by your toe tapping, you're going to be behind, because that's the impulse from your brain down to your toe back to your hand is going to be behind." And thinking about all of those things from a very early age and just listening made a huge difference. And sometimes it gets in my way as a vocalist because I try to be too precise at times. Early on, people said, because usually my rhythm was too precise and I wasn't using rhythm.
Interesting.
And so learning how to live within the context of rhythm being influenced by text and text has been a journey to find the balance between doing it right and inflecting the words.
The eternal struggle, that's a concept I think it's usually one or the other, and everyone has to find their balance, right?
Right.
Wow.
I love it. I absolutely love it. And then passing on and teaching my students to think like that and stop thinking you can't do note to note. You have to see the big picture. You have to understand the note to note process, but you have to see what this does, the large picture, and how that functions within the context of, okay, so this is the mini phrase, but this is the whole sentence.
That syntax of music is so. I just love that imagery. The syntax. This chord is like a letter, and then you put them together, and understanding the syntax and really getting that approach to language. It really makes sense in music.
It does, and I mean, and a literal sense of punctuation within singing words, and how that punctuation affects how you end a phrase, a mini phrase, or participle of the whole structure of the sentence, so we know as an audience that your thought continues on. How does that process go through the quiet? Why is that rest there? Is the rest there for your breath? Is it the rest there for you to pace? Is the rest there for your consonants? You don't really need the breath, but the consonant needs a spot. So it's finding those juicy little tidbits that you can lock into to make it your own.
The incisiveness of the language, the incisiveness of the language really can help a singer to project over the orchestra. If you do, Maestro Solopini was always so good about teaching me when I was conducting. I was an assistant conductor for him, and he was always showing me like how that it aids the singer, it aids them projecting over the orchestra. There's so many ways that the language can help the performance.
Yes, absolutely. I mean, language is the key to conveyance. I mean, it's the key to how we convey legato. It is how we convey intention and emotion. It's an extraordinary opportunity to use something so simple that we talk all day long, and yet we don't. As young singers, many of us don't think in terms of the sentence structure or the rhyme scheme of what we're saying in another language. We think the musical phrase because we're taught music, and we forget that both are part of the whole thing.
Critical parts of the structure. I think it just takes years to get that sense of that, to get your sea legs, as it were. And then you add the dramatic impact, and you add the staging, and it becomes magic.
Yes, it does. Absolutely. Oh my gosh.
Have you always been teaching? How did you get into teaching? And does teaching help your singing?
I, from a very early age, I've kind of always just been a teacher. When I was horseback riding, I was always with my teacher out in the ring, teaching younger students how to ride. I always found teaching fascinating because it was about opening up someone to a new idea. And teaching the person, not the thing. Teaching has absolutely been a part of my life from a very early age. Even out of college, it's one of the things that I did to make ends meet. And then I discovered teaching through Upper Carolina. I discovered teaching artist work. And being asked to teach summer camps or to introduce kids to opera and make it fun. And so I started thinking about opera in a much more simplistic manner, but also noticing how opera is around us all day long and being able to take what they are familiar with and take them to what they don't know and where it comes from. So I would begin, when I watch TV, I would just kind of click lists of this TV show had this aria or this duet, this commercial utilized this in it. And I would go through the list, and I created when I was much younger, I created a whole YouTube channel full of all of those things. And I would go in and I would play these commercials and TV shows and clips and say, what do you hear? And I would talk to 4th and 5th graders and 6th graders. And then I've done the Music Words Opera program. And it absolutely enhances what I do on stage, because it makes me think about how would I want to understand this character?
Absolutely.
If I was sitting out there and hearing this for the very first time, and it reminds me that there's always someone who's never seen this opera.
That's a good point. That's a good point. You're always teaching. You're always advocating for your art form whenever you're on a stage. Or powerful words.
Yeah. It's a beautiful symbiosis between the audience and the production, the whole thing. It's not just one person on the stage, because for me, everyone, there's a lot of chorus soloists. No, for me, the chorus is its own soloist. It is its own principal character. Without a chorus, unless it's written that way, we can't really tell the whole story. Without the orchestra, we can't tell the whole story because there's so much syntax and there's so much subtext going on in the orchestra, and how, especially with things like Mozart, because there's so much repeated text, but there's such differences within what's going on in the orchestra, and that's what's the subtext. And if we are looking at Mozart as singers, we have to look at the text and go, but why would Mozart repeat this? It's not because he didn't have the verbal skills. It's because of censors. If the censors hadn't been there, we would have completely different Mozart operas. I truly believe that. But all of those ideas that he wanted to impart to the repeated text are all implied in the orchestration. And that is really important to be able to portray and give to the audience a deeper understanding.
Yeah, with Mozart, with his use of form, he was working with pre-existing forms, and he was innovating within forms. And it must be, I always respect singers who, when they approach the return of an A section and they add something special to that. It's something a singer can do, and also the stage director, of course. And then together you see the magic that is the theater.
Absolutely. It doesn't matter that there's repetition happens everywhere. Repetition of vocal line happens in Verdi all the time, but the text is different, so it makes it a little bit easier. But you still have to change how you sing that's repeated line, and it's I love it. I love it so much. I remember Carol's mentor, may he rest in peace, was Maestro Herbert Grossman. Who had been one of Toscanini's assistants, and I had the joy and pleasure of working with him prior to his passing. And I will never forget him looking at me very calmly, very gently. He was a very gentle man, and he would go, "May I conduct you?" "Of course, Maestro, of course." and then we were working in Trovatore, and he said, "No, I need 45 S's." Svenami. And I was like, Svenami. And he was like, no, Svenami. He said, make yourself uncomfortable with how many S's you make. And I did it, and my voice kind of cracked, and I'm like, oh God, everything's wrong, everything's going to fall apart. And Carol went, ha-ha, she's got it.
Yeah, but you have to be around that old school. That old school has so much to impart, and that's the blessing every day that I was around Salpini, who was Corelli's coach and pianist, and it's that those connections to the past are what through you live on.
Yes, it was an honor to go back a year later after his passing and sing at his life remembrance event and sing Visitarte, and he did. He lived for life and lived for art and lived for love.
And he lives through you as you go out there on the major world stages and you make this music come alive and you bring that forward. Isn't that's what's amazing about this art form, is that it's so deep in that regard with our ties to the past.
Yeah. Every time you walk, I mean, I'm sure you feel the same thing. Anytime you walk into an old theater, that you feel the spirits of everything around you, and you just know you're inhabiting someplace that is sacred.
I spend my summers at the Great Auditorium in Ocean Grove, where I'm the music director, and I've been here. It's my 14th season, so it's been a few years. But it's a theater where Caruso did recitals, and McCormick, and Gali Curci, and Marian Anderson, and Lawrence Tibbett. They all came here on tour, and they performed. So every time I walk in the building, and we usually do large choral works, and it's a large church as well. And every time I walk in there, I think it's just silent now. This year has been a very strange year because of the COVID-19. There's no choruses, there's much else, but we still make music. And I just think, I always think about the spirits in the room and who sang there and the energy and the space. And it's a great thought, certainly.
Walking, now living in Chicago and having someplace like Lyric as now kind of my home company is humbling every time I walk in that door and walk out on that stage. And having now worked in Vienna and worked at the Met and worked in San Francisco and Seattle and Dallas and all these incredible amazing companies who have hosted such a wealth of artistry. Not just the names that roll out off of our tongue, like Maria Callas and Caruso, but the people like Eleanor Ross and Maria Yaritza and Rosa Raisa and all the greats, and I feel so, Zika Milanov, I feel so connected to these incredibly passionate, humbling artists who set a standard for us. Will we ever be the same as them? No. And I think that's perfect. I don't think we should. Can we make it our own? And do we have to make it our own? Absolutely. There is, every one of us who comes to this art form brings our own life experience. And while those life experiences are very similar many times, they're all distinctly different.
Such beautiful words and such beautiful thoughts. We have our first question from the audience. This is from Cheryl from Jacksonville, Florida. And
hi, Cheryl.
Cheryl asks, what's the most challenging role you've performed and why?
Ooh. As much as I absolutely adore her, I would probably say Minnie has been probably the most challenging as of yet, for many reasons. It's not necessarily that she herself is challenging. It was the context by which I was performing her the first time. It was an insanely busy year for me. It was a debut, and it was such a crazy year. That was the busiest year so far for me. And she's so much me that it was really challenging to not overact and become a caricature of myself in that context. And the pacing, oh my God, the pacing of Act 2 is a nightmare because of how intimate some things are and how much you have to scream at times. And then to come out and say goodbye in such a bittersweet, extraordinary way to all the guys in the camp. It was devastating every night. And that's probably because it was so emotionally connected to who I am. It makes it very challenging to perform.
Interesting. And what are some roles that I'll play devil advocate. What are some roles that came easier to you as a performer?
Tosca. Tosca's like a role.
Have you sung that one the most at this point?
Actually, Tosca is the one I have done the most.
Wow.
At this point, which blows my mind, honestly, because I look at myself in the mirror and I go, "Am I a Tosca? Okay." I'm such a goober. I mean, seriously. I'm like, really? But yeah, no, she's the one that was like, that's fine. Aida is a challenge for many reasons, but the other one that's a lot of fun to sing is actually Ballo and Mascara. She's a ton of fun. Ariadne was a blast to sing. Challenging because Strauss, but just because the ensemble is hard. That's the only thing that's hard about Ariadne for me. And that is, it's hard not to sound like I'm being a snot when I say that, but it is. There are aspects of Ariadne that are challenging because of the dropping down into chest voice, and there, but having come from being a mezzo, that world is not far from my life, ever.
Everyone's got different challenges. Every singer brings their own unique gifts and their skills, and I always find it fascinating to sit down with singers and ask them what came naturally, what they had to work on, and it's always so different. That's what makes the art form interesting for me as a conductor, is to read what singers naturally bring and to kind of just get to know the artist before we have to go into process. It's just always so fascinating.
Absolutely. And I'm sad that we actually didn't get to work together when I, for those who don't know, Jason was one of the first people to hire me.
Yeah, right at that New York period, you came in there, and I mean, I have to tell the audience that you were so special. It was a youth run out of a youth performance of Hansel and Gretel, and you lit up the stage. The young people were so inspired by your singing, and all of us would look over and say, "Whoa!" There was something special, just really, and then I turn around and you are everywhere, and I'm like, that is so great. It is so exciting to see someone who is such a student of the art form and just explode on the scene and then just take off and become one of the greats. So
You made me cry. You made me cry. Don't do that to me. Thank you. That really means the world to me. And ironically, keep an eye out for the next couple of years, because you may be seeing that one of those roles come back for me in the future. So I'm very excited about that. May COVID end soon.
So tell us about your COVID innovations. You're very busy. Your mind is always so active. Tell us what you're working on in COVID.
Well, my incredible partner is the smart one of the two of us, quite honestly, and he's a full-time member of the Lyric Opera Chorus, and he is an extraordinary bass in his own right. One day he'll be Wotan, and I'll get to sing Brunhilde with my
That's
partner,
exciting.
who's like, talk about incest.
Freud would be proud.
It's perfect for Wagner. It's fine. But he also was is a web designer, web developer, and because we are now living out we are in the I can't talk in the suburbs. That's not the proverbs. No, the suburbs. I've either had too much caffeine or not enough. He was starting to convert his web design business into, we were opening a recording studio, a portable recording studio here in Chicago, and because of that, we also had been looking around. This is prior to COVID. We'd been looking around at the industry, at the area, and seeing that there was a missing piece about live streaming, and with that, we decided to start collecting some cameras and finding the right pieces to the puzzle to be able to provide live streaming for all of the recitals that go on, or people that were coming into town to do something special at Lyric or whatever. And someone wanted to come in and record their compositions and live stream it for people that they want to hear their pieces. Great. When unfortunately the ring cycle was canceled, we were sitting on this equipment, and we were sitting around probably drinking a little too much bourbon or something along those lines, quite honestly, that night, and started throwing ideas against the wall, and because we want to put people back to work, honestly. And this company was kind of born out of our desire to see people get back to work. And we created what we now call Valhalla Media Live. And we are producing our own concert series where we live stream and monetize these events. And we are trying to get as many people back to work as we possibly can within the confines of COVID limitations. And then because we also have all this equipment, we are also trying to partner with opera companies and theaters and symphonies and dance and basically anybody who needs to get their new works and get ticket sales. Let's be honest, we don't want to devalue what we're doing as artists, because we all have bills to pay. And if we can learn anything from the newspaper market, where they were giving everything away for free initially on when everything went to digital, let's not do that. Let's get people remembering the value of what is in front of them, and put new things out. So we have people approaching us with these incredible ideas, and I cannot wait. I really hope some of them get picked up and get some support from opera companies and from other organizations, because they're brilliant forward-thinking ideas that include, ideas for for site-based operas, and for series operas, and for just operas that are being filmed like film, and so we're going to go and help them.
How can people find out more about that company? How can people? What's your website address?
It is Valhalla Media with a V .io or valhallamedia.live. And we've got all sorts of stuff up, and people can see what we've done. Our debut was actually an incredible recital by baritone Will Liverman. And he actually did a world premiere of Shauna Caballot's Two Black Churches. And it was devastating. Empty theater. I was the only person in the theater, and I was just a mess, absolutely a mess. The next night, ironically, we did Hansel and Gretel in concert, and we did it with the extraordinary Emily Fons and Emily Polgareltz as Hansel and Gretel. We had Alan Glassman as the witch.
Oh.
We had Craig Irvin as the father. I sang the mother. We talk about luxury casting. We had Annie Rosen as our individual Dew Fairy and Sandman. And then our orchestra of all orchestras was the incomparable Eric Weimer.
Wow. I mean, the artists are all around. We're all dying to perform and to work with colleagues. It's time, innovation will breed new ideas. I think it's wonderful that you've come up with these ideas and that you're finding, the colleagues are all ready, and to present that platform, bravo to you both for creating that for everybody.
Thank you. We're really excited. We're excited about some of the things that are coming to fruition in the next probably week or so. So there will be some new announcements for the next round of concerts coming up soon, which I'm really thrilled about. And we're in mind that will feature some very interesting, I can't say much more, interesting places.
We have the Valhalla Media Live is flashing across the screen. You can't see it, but it's there. So I encourage the audience to go and check it out and to see what innovations are taking place in COVID with some wonderful artists and great people as well.
Thank you.
Well, thank you so much for joining us tonight for Music Matters 2020. It's such a pleasure to catch up to you. It's been way too long.
Yes. It has indeed. Let's not make it this long again.
Did I hear
please.
you have a performance coming up?
I do. It won't be live, but I actually go out next week and go do some recording for Seattle, and so I'm honored and humbled and beyond overwhelmed that I'm one of the people that gets to go work right now.
So what does it feel like when you can go over there and perform the first time in so long after you've been performing, you've been doing your own projects? What does it feel to go back to a place you've worked before and to make music again?
I am going to lose my mind. I'm so excited because Seattle's, if I hadn't stayed in New York and then moved to Chicago, I was thinking about moving to Seattle. That's how much I loved it. And it is a favorite place, and I've done three productions out there now. I covered, and Aaron de Herkovian has been a huge supporter of mine for many, many years, and I'm immensely grateful to the company and for everything they've done for me.
Well, thank you so much for joining us tonight, and I wish you nothing but the best as you continue your career, and we'll see you down the road.
Thank you. See you soon.
Thank you for joining us on Music Matters 2020, our unique podcast community. Please remember to subscribe to us on YouTube and hit that bell for the most up-to-date information on upcoming guests and topics. Like our videos and share and join our community. Thank you so much. And remember, keep music alive.